computer. Okay, so hi everybody. I am Suzanne Fox and I'm here with my friend Maya Menon, and this is our first Changemaker Chats across the globe. I'm calling in from a small island off the coast of Maine in the United States. Maya is calling in from Fort Kochi in Kerala. And why are we here together? Two women across the globe, and we vision our time together as if we're sitting around a kitchen table having a cup of tea. We just want a space to have honest, raw, open conversations about mental health because mental health is such an important global topic. And what does it look like in the United States? What are young people facing and dealing with? How do they address it? What does it look like in India? So Maya and I just had this wonderful idea of let's just have these conversations and open spaces to share our ideas. This is informal. You're not going to be seeing any slide presentations or any formal anything. We're friends, we're colleagues, we're co-workers because we're totally firm believers in change happens, the power of community. So that's why we're here. This is our very first issue, our first session. So we're excited. We're excited to open the door to monthly conversations. We're excited to bring in people from across the globe to join us sitting around our virtual kitchen table. So Maya, I'm just turning it over to you and say hi and what brought you here and why is this important to you?
Okay, hi, Suzanne. Thank you for that. Hi everyone. I am from Kochi, Kerala. That is the southmost part of India, and I run an NGO for mental health called Mind Empowered, and the way Suzanne and myself connected was completely because of mental health. I think all of us, we what I call mental health is like a silent pandemic, and we are all in it, and we don't realize it. And both of us are passionate about breaking the stigma that's attached to mental health across the globe. So that's the reason why we decided to have this kind of an open conversation, have this platform where you can talk about it. Because most of the time people just brush it under the carpet. They don't really talk about anything. So that's the reason why we thought we'd start off on this. Change has to start somewhere. So why not with us?
Exactly. Uh,
Suzanne, would you like to tell about, a bit about the Yellow Tulip Project? What
sure.
made you started?
Yeah, sure. So thank you, Maya. And it's so nice to see you. We've met and we did workshops together in India in January. And neither one of us came from mental health backgrounds initially, but both of us know that, like Maya just said, change needs to happen. And step by step, we can make a difference in this space. So yeah, 10 years ago, I really didn't know a lot about mental health. My daughter Julia was 15 at the time and struggling alone with her own depression and her own self-harm. And I had no idea. She's my baby. I have three children. I think I'm a tuned in, great mom, connected to my kids. And how did I not know that my daughter is struggling with depression and purposely cutting herself? It was just so uh, hard for a parent to not know and to miss the signs. So she told me before she began her sophomore year of high school that, Mom, I'm depressed. I'm purposely hurting myself and I want to get healthy and I want you to know. And then 2 months later, her very best friend took her life. And then 2 months after that, her second best friend took her life. So there's my daughter alone, having just lost her two best friends to suicide, struggling alone with her own self-harm and depression. And we both said, this is enough. We have to talk about this. We have to remind people that it's okay to not be okay. that asking for help is a sign of strength, not weakness. And the stigma is the barrier that keeps people from reaching out and asking for help. So we started something so simple in the state where I'm from. It Yellow was one of her friend's favorite flowers. Yellow was one of her friend's favorite colors. The tulip was her other friend's favorite flower. The yellow tulip is the flower of hope. And we all need a lot of hope. It's the one thing that unites us is holding on to hope that things can get better and things can change. So we had an idea to plant a hope garden, a yellow tulip garden in the autumn during Mental Health Awareness Week, Global Mental Health Awareness Day. Come together as a community, get your hands dirty, plant a garden, share stories and poetry and wellness activities. And that simple act of bringing people together. And then later in the springtime, the flowers bloom. And again, it brings people together. And it was so beautiful and so hopeful. And then it spread. And one other thing about tulips, and then I'm going to stop talking because I have a tendency to talk too much, but I didn't know a lot about gardening, but I did learn about tulips. And I learned that the tulip flowers, the bulb of the tulips need to be planted close together. And they have to go through cold, dark winters. They're down there in the soil and nobody can see them, but they're down there close together. And then they push their way up and they bloom and they're beautiful and strong. And it's such a reminder about mental health that people need to be close together. People need community. And mental illness is not something we can see. You can see if somebody's in a wheelchair. You can see if somebody has a cast on their arm, but you don't know what people are going through. So that's kind of where we started. And since then, it's grown to become a national organization, now an international organization. And last year, I went to Edinburgh, Scotland, and I did a master's degree in global mental health, which is what brought me to Maya and to Mind Empowered because I wanted to look at stigma across cultures, and that's where we are right now. So that's a long story of where I got to where I am. But I think important for our first session for people to know why are these two women from India and United States having these conversations? So right back at you, Maya, and just share like how did you get into mental health? And as I remember, you didn't come as a mental health practitioner. So what is your backstory?
Yeah, I think that's something that's common between the two of us, I must say. So I was a computer engineer working in corporate, went on to work as a guest faculty in one of the universities here and teaching BTech and MTech engineering students, undergrads and postgrads. And it was during the lockdown that, when my sister, Srila Menon, and myself, we were teaching online a lot of youngsters. We were taking online classes, and we got to know that a lot of students were going through mental health issues, and some of them were even on brink of suicide. And that made us realize that we need to do something about it. So we started off just like a webinar. Like we asked one of our friends, can she was a psychologist, and like, can you take a session for our students? And she's like, yes. And then that one webinar led to many more webinars, and then more people started coming in, and so we started doing it every Saturday, and that's how Mind Empowered. So, like you said, right, about having a cast, or when you break your hand, everybody's asking you, "Oh, what happened?" Oh, you get all that sympathy and all of that. But if you break your heart, yeah, nobody can see it. Doesn't mean it's not broken, right? And just like your hand gets healed, it's not like you live with a broken hand all your life. The same way, your heart also gets healed. So what that it's okay not to be okay. So that is the you know, um, primary message we would like to send out there.
Yeah, I think what I'm excited about is that there's so much people, I can't speak for people all over the globe, but I can speak for people in the United States and people in my community. But a lot of people are really overwhelmed, and these are just, it's hard times right now. And anything that we can do to remind people that there's help, that there's resources, I think that is what you and I have started, me and my daughter, you and your sister, is pretty exciting that the difference is you got to start somewhere. And you never know, is this going to happen? Is this not going to happen? But the only way change happens is if we try, right? And it could fail, but gosh, you got to try. And I think what I like about what you're doing and what we're doing is really the focus on empowering young people. Because I know in the United States, and I'd like to get your perspective on India, but there are a lot of young people right now. First of all, in the United States, our Surgeon General a couple of years ago said the young people in America are in a youth mental health crisis. It's a crisis. There's so many issues with lack of access to care and suicidal ideation, anxiety rates, depression, and a lot of young people in the United States right now feel that they don't matter, the issue of mattering. And at the Yellow Tulip Project, we empower young people to find their voices, to share their stories, to become leaders in their communities. And I think you're doing similar work. You were just telling me about a program empowering young Indian girls, young women. So I'd love to get a sense, Maya,
Yes.
and this is a very big question, but like, what is the state of mental health in India? That's way too big because you're over 1 billion people. But can you just like, what is the state of mental health in the state that you're in Kerala? How is
Yeah.
it talked about, addressed, et cetera, et cetera?
Well, so it's a sad state of affairs, I must say, because it is a stigma throughout India, whether it's Kerala or Kashmir. It is there. It is. So what happens is, even if our youngsters, even if the Gen Z is like, okay, I have an issue, I want to go to a psychologist or a psychiatrist. Most of the times, either their family or their relatives or people around them will like, don't go. What will people say? Who will marry you? And all that kind of social stigma that's attached.
Mhm.
So, if you tell the world, I'm gonna hit the gym, I'm gonna take care of my physical fitness, then why can't you tell the world, I'm gonna go see a psychologist so that I can get better? Why stigma is attached to the mental health and not to the physical health? Why is that? Right? I mean, I think both are equally important. For me, mental health is way more important. You are mentally okay, you will physically become okay, is my take on the matter. But the sad part is, and it's not just in urban areas or rural areas, everywhere, whether you're educated, whether you're not, whether you're literate, whether you're not, mental health is not something that is, even given much thought. But I would say there's a change that's happening with the younger generation, and who are actually very much, starting to realize that yes, we need to take care of ourselves, and I'm really glad that is happening. But we really have a long way to go before the stigma can be broken,
Yeah.
because only if the stigma is broken can we have these open conversations, right? So that people don't feel defined by their mental state. I think, you feel sad. There is a difference between I am sad and I feel sad. It's a feeling,
Yeah.
right? Your feeling doesn't define you. That's only a part of you.
Yeah.
I think people need to understand that.
That's so true. Maya, I was just thinking about a couple things just came to mind. First of all, I also agree, like when we started the Yellow Tulip Project 10 years ago, the stigma then was so much more heavy and intense than it is now. And I think it's getting better. And at least in the United States, it's getting better. Young people are more inclined to talk to their friends about their mental health. But there's a couple issues. One issue is that it's not easy to find a psychologist, a therapist. There's long waiting lists. They don't take insurance. So it's one thing to be able to say, okay, I'm feeling anxious or depressed. I feel like I need to talk to somebody, but then finding somebody to talk to somebody. So that gap between need and even if there's no stigma at all, it's not easy to find somebody. And then there's the issue of payment. And so there's definite like social determinants that keep it harder, even if you are able to talk about it. And then the other thing, I want to circle back to the workshops that we did together in India, because what I found, I've spoken to a lot of adults and schools, and I've just done a lot of speaking about this issue. And I find that the younger people are much more inclined to talk about mental health. And I think the issue, at least in the United States, is a lot of the older parents. There's again, this is a big generalization, but I've definitely have found that some parents are don't talk about that. Family shame stays in the family. We don't tell people. And I'm just kind of wondering what is it like for the older generation and their understanding of mental health issues?
So that depends. Some of them do understand, but most of them. So if someone's depressed, they'll be like, "Don't be lazy, get out of the bed." I mean, it's not laziness that they don't understand, right? And they're like, "Oh, don't be so weak, be strong." We also used to face these things, and we didn't term it anything, and you just get on with it. And there are so many the way you say, the way you approach things, it is so different. And especially like if I go here and I say mental health, oh, so mental health immediately is taken as if you're mentally ill. And I'm like, well, mental health is different. I mean, not different, but you cannot just term everything as mental illness, right? There is illness, there is health, there is well-being. So you need to understand that, which so that kind of education, I think, needs to be given from school level. To be very honest, I mean, we should actually reach out from the grassroots, talk about it, and talk. So it's and normally people say, oh, everybody talks, nobody walks the talk, right? But here the talk is important. The talk is something that is not
Yep.
happening.
Yeah, no,
Right?
I totally agree. But back to so just to let people know, Maya and I did some workshops at social work schools. We at universities in Kerala, and we spoke to master's students and bachelor students about and so again, this is a specific group of people who already are aware of mental health because they're social work students. But I was so inspired. I put up on the board conversation about stigma, and then they got into breakout groups of what can we do to address stigma. And it really made me feel how small and connected the world is because the young people sitting in those groups sharing their findings were not different from the young people I've worked with in California, in Maine, in New York. It's really pretty exciting to see how inspiring the young people's voices are. And they had such great ideas. And if older people would listen to younger people, we'd be in so much better place, right?
Oh, so true, so true, so true. The thing is, and I don't know whether to call it a generational gap or whatever, but I just love being with the Gen Z because their ideas are remarkable, to say in the least. And when you stay with them, you get that energy, right? And they're like, why can't you understand that this is very important for
Mm.
us? And they don't understand that lack of understanding that the other generation gives back to them. So yeah, so that gap is pretty obvious. But I think if we can, how I try to help, because it's not easy to focus on parents or elderly citizens who have already had their mindset in a particular manner. So I actually focus on trying to train the teachers in colleges and schools so that they can try and recognize early signs and symptoms. So I myself was a teacher, and I didn't have a psychology or psychiatry degree, but as a person who comes and sees students on a daily basis, if there's a change of behavior, and I can get to know that as just as a human to another human, right? And as a teacher, it's up to me whether I choose to see or choose to ignore.
Right.
So why not choose to see?
Right. Yes, I totally agree. So, one thing that we're excited about is that, first of all, we could sit around this virtual kitchen table all day, all night. It's 8 o'clock, 8:30 in the morning for me. It's what time is it for you, Maya?
It's 6:30 in the
Okay, so
evening.
it's
Yeah.
my breakfast time, your dinner time, but what we're excited about is continuing these conversations. And we have incredible, like in one of our upcoming sessions, we have this amazing dynamo young woman from Nigeria who's 22 years old, who started her own nonprofit. She'll bring in her perspective. So each session that we host these Changemaker chats, we want to bring in more voices from different places, learn from each other. What can we do collectively? What can we understand that's different? So I think both of us are just really excited for these conversations to continue and keep following us and joining us. And we'll see you next month. Maya, anything else to add before we end our first Changemaker chat across the globe?
Yeah, I believe change starts with us, with you, with me, with each of us. We just change ourselves and accept us as we are, right? You should accept yourself as you are. So acceptance is very important. Aware, become more accepting of yourself, and just be you. That's enough.
Yeah.
You are enough. So
Yeah.
yes. So
That, that, that's a nice message to end. So thank you, everybody, and onward to our next Changemaker chat.